beyond life and death. I think the reason why I decided to create this event this evening is because of the fact that during the whole last year, we experienced many more people dying, and we know about that, and we are aware that friends of friends, parents, children, family members, it just so happened that because of the pandemic, the matter of death is somewhat closer to us. And together with it, there comes pain, emotional pain, but also suffering, physical suffering. There comes sadness, mourning. It's a tragedy for us. And so, because of that, I thought I will present the matter of life and death from what I'm teaching, which is what I call at this time, these days I call it our multidimensional consciousness, to make it into a very clear, easy to understand system. But meetings like the one today is not necessarily going to be of a very strict format. I'm just going to, again, present the subtle body system from the viewpoint of what I was able to perceive, the system of our multidimensional consciousness. I know that many of you know that in this book, Transcendence Calling, I write about my spontaneous experience of Kundalini rising. The full title of the book is Transcendence Calling, the Power of Kundalini Rising and Spiritual Enlightenment. When I had the experience, I didn't know the word Kundalini at all. I didn't believe in chakras, although I heard about them. And overall, it was a completely new thing to me I had no idea about. Therefore, I was able to experience it without having any preconceptions about it. What is it and why is it happening? So I have a fresh first-hand view of this experience. After I had my experience, I was able to compare it to what's already known about Kundalini rising, what's known about spiritual enlightenment. I learned about other experiences of others. And the subject of death is always there. During that experience, very often, we actually go through death. For example, a great, wonderful, incredible spiritual teacher, Ramana Maharshi, had his experience when he was 16 years old, very young, but it happened because at some moment he decided that he wants to experience death. And somehow, at first he was really scared, but then somehow he conquered his fear and was able to bring on the sensation of death. And he was saying that he could not only imagine but almost experience his body being dead. And that brought his experience. I know, I'm pretty sure that Steve Jobs on his deathbed had the experience as well. As you may know, Steve Jobs was always interested, especially when he was younger. He was very interested in spiritual enlightenment. He traveled to India. He did all kinds of special diets and meditation and so on. He knew about the experience. I know that during the time when his last words were actually as recorded by his sister, who wrote about it. He was saying, "Oh, wow, wow, wow." That was all he said before he passed away. And it really touched me, because I realized that that's what was happening. His consciousness was moving through the chakras that open us up to the dimensions. And this is something that no one else is teaching in that way, in the way that I'm teaching, because usually that experience happens extremely fast. And sometimes people are able to see that something specific happened and it was different, very different to regular experiences in life, to something that we can consider a mundane experience. For example, Eckhart Tolle was able to see that there was, as if that he had two identities, that there was his mind talking to him, and then there was his consciousness also present, and there was almost a discussion going on. So depending on the place where the consciousness is the strongest, people have remembrance of the experience from that place. Sometimes it's in the heart area. So sometimes it's an experience of finding God. This is what Jesus was teaching. And connection with God, which is the love, the chakra of universal love. So it really depends at what point. Maybe depends on our previous education, or depends on our predispositions. For me, it happened in the way that I was able to perceive my consciousness move through all of these dimensions. So this way I am lucky enough to be able to describe the sequence in which our consciousness can move up and find the exit through the crown chakra and unite with everything in full awareness that we are eternal. Consciousness is eternal. It's just that our life here in this reality is mainly taking place in the first three dimensions of material, emotional, and mental. We are kind of stuck in those dimensions, and we pay attention to these dimensions the most because consciousness, which is Kundalini, the name comes from Sanskrit. It means coiled up, but it also can mean fire. So that coiled up energy sits in between the material and emotional chakra. So, because of that, our experience of life, our immediate experience of life is physical, emotional, and then we have the third chakra right here, which is mental. This is the mind. This is the mind, the will, the mind that speculates, that goes after our goals, desires, the mind that always is working in a linear, logical fashion. That mind is unable to perceive what's above, the dimensions above. It can learn about them, but it's not able to actually experience them. And this is because there is a hierarchy to the system, to the subtle body system. There is a hierarchy to chakras. From the physical being, just being physical, just being a part of the material world, we can't see anything about. But if our consciousness, our coiled up Kundalini, uncoils and is able to move through the chakras all the way up, even already when it's in the sixth chakra, it can see all the way down, and it can see how these dimensions are, each of them operates on a different principle. The first one is material, and it has three sub-dimensions of length, width, and depth. Of course, that's not how the science is talking about it, because the science does not see the material world as a dimension. Science is in the third chakra. Somebody can have a perfect mind, great memory and great ability of computing, but it doesn't mean that that person has necessarily the upper chakras open. So each of us is very different, and each of us is experiencing life in a slightly different way, or in a very different way. For most of us, the aspect of life and death is something that we're so anchored in life, in that material existence, that we're terribly scared of death. And if someone who's close to us dies, of course, it is always difficult. But which hopefully is something that will help anyone who's going through that sense of loss and sorrow, is that consciousness never dies. If it does not have to be necessarily in the form of the person who passed away, but simply consciousness is always there. Our body dies and the person dies, but if we were connected with that person, we can keep that connection, because the upper chakras don't work like the lower ones, and there is no time. The time is actually a component of it's the subdimension of the third chakra of the mind. If we didn't have time, we wouldn't be able to have all those stories that we have throughout life. Emotions that mix with thoughts create feelings, and so the stories are there full of dramatic events, happy events, all kinds of stories, volumes. Each of us goes through life because of the aspect of time. We can follow what's going on in our lives, in the life of the whole world. We can understand and follow events. But the upper chakras operate differently. So, for example, not one person, but I know of many people, and me myself, I had contact with my grandma who passed away. She came and gave me an advice it was years after she passed away. And I know of friends that have contact with spirits of their parents or grandparents or siblings. And it is because of the fifth chakra, where the connection is kept outside of the time factor. Nothing above the third chakra has time. The fourth chakra opens us up to love. That's eternal and it's always there. The fifth chakra opens us up to an incredible dimension of connection, exchange of energy, and information. Information, this is much more powerful than the internet. And that's because any information that you would like to have is there in that dimension. Everything that has ever happened, everything that will happen, and everything that's happening now is in the Akashic records. Of course, the third chakra will be, the mind will be very skeptical of that. No wonder. The mind does not accept things that are outside of its own understanding. But as we know, and as we've known for thousands of years, there are ways of communicating with spirits, with our guides, spiritual guides, with angels, with archangels, with all kinds of beings from other galaxies, whoever it may be, just by, with body or without body, we can communicate. It's all future. It's all future of mankind. And the fact that these dimensions have certain character and that they have certain quality and give us a lot of information, it's important, very important. But humans will not be able to fully utilize that knowledge unless the lower chakras are clear. And this is our big deal that spiritual teachers have been talking about for thousands of years. That's the fact that the first, second, and third, and mostly second and third chakras are congested. This is where our ego, our personality is created. And it's not something to get rid of as something unnecessary, because we do apply the energy of these three chakras to our life. For optimal existence, we need to be able to work with our mind and use it. Only because our minds are so full of mental systems, so full of thoughts, so full of, call it memories of the stories, what happened, we are not, our minds are not completely free. As spiritual teachers have been telling for centuries, and as we are currently practicing meditation and practicing how to slow down the thought process and how to, in a way, to say, get rid of the mind. You can't get rid of the mind, but the mind is full of thoughts, and it is possible to clear the mind from thoughts. It's one of the things that I'm teaching, and it all depends too on who you are. What is your way of focusing the mind? What is your way of understanding yourself? And what kind of practices are the best for you? Because we're all different. Some of us can meditate. Not me. I don't like to meditate, but I like other things. I like to paint, and that's meditation. So some of us use the magic of the upper chakras to focus the mind. That's what I've done for many years, and I spent years looking at the painting, staring at it, contemplating it, and that was one of the reasons why my consciousness was able to break through that chakra, which frees that happening, that event will free us from the prison of the ego. Once we can move on and experience the upper dimensions, this is where understanding of the cycle of lives, understanding of what samsara is, which is the cycle of life and death in Sanskrit. So that knowledge has been there for thousands of years. Knowledge about clearing the chakras and experiencing spiritual enlightenment, unification with all there is in full awareness, and understanding that consciousness is eternal. On top of that, what's really interesting is the fact that our individual consciousness, who each of us is individually, that consciousness is able to move through the dimensions and explore them and understand them. And at the point of arriving in the 6th chakra, towards the end of the 6th chakra, our soul self-realizes. And that's when we come to a full understanding that the soul is the creator of our life. The way our life goes, events, situations, changes that we go through, all that has been designed by our magnificent soul that is close to what is called in Sanskrit Brahman, and the soul is Atman. Individual soul exists in the sixth dimension. And right before uniting with all there is in full awareness, that soul has to self-realize. So our individual being understands that all the trials and tribulations, all our pain that we go through in life, that's something that we created for ourselves in order to self-realize. So I hope that bringing on that information will help to ease the heaviness of the pandemic year. We are purposefully creating our lives. This individual unit of consciousness creates the subtle body in order to experience, in order to go through life and learn how to deal with it. That's why you can't tell that if somebody has a very easy life or difficult life, because it's very individual. As we know, the saying is that everyone is going through their own battle, and we don't know what that battle is. But we know that emotional issues are very powerful. And as long as we identify with emotions that we have, as long as we identify with feelings and systems of thoughts that we come up with that accompany our outside, it's very hard to be beyond it. Consciousness of the soul does live through lifetimes. And only the soul has to self-realize as self-creator if it wants to not participate in the creation. But it doesn't really matter. What matters is that we know how to develop our potential from being in that cycle of life and death, from being unaware of other dimensions, the upper chakras, to actually being able to deal with these chakras that are full of emotions, full of thoughts. And if we are ill, the first chakra is also congested. This consciousness, Kundalini, is magical. Each of us is a magical being. So we have the potential to be much more than we usually are in life. But through practices of, like yoga, for example, is a great practice that allows for aligning and helping with upper and lower chakras to be like lower chakras. We need to train. It's training. Yoga is training physical body, but it also helps with other dimensions. Practices that allow us to deal with our emotions. Because, as I said, and as we all know, emotions can be difficult, but we are really able to deal with them. And I teach the practice that's called emotions and emptiness. Teach how to find yourself in the state of emptiness, which is a neutral state, neutral emotional state. When that chakra, the emotions, the vibration of emotions that we know we can relate to some people emotionally, to others not, because they're on a different, their emotions are different at that time. So it's hard to relate. But if the emotion is similar, it's much easier to relate. So anyway, that chakra, together with this chakra, they're so full of emotions and thoughts that we can't see straight. That spirit that's free and very bright and able to resolve any problem without any problem easily, that spirit is trapped here below the mind and below the emotions. Through the practices of emotions and emptiness, and through practices that I call know thyself, focusing and training the mind, we can release the energy from these chakras. And that way, Kundalini, that always wants to go up, it always wants. It's just ready to go up. It wants to awaken. At the time when these chakras are clear, it can move up, and it will move up. And the upper chakras, we don't always have them developed enough. So we can't really get all the information. So there are ways of practicing cultivation of upper chakras. Arts is one of major ways of developing the fifth and sixth chakra. Through that kind of work, through training the lower ones and cultivating, developing the upper ones, our being will become what it is able to become. That is, using magical powers from the upper dimensions and living in the heart. Because eventually, when Kundalini can go up and clear that whole channel, it's called Shunva, when it can clear it up and allow the energy to actually move this way, it just keeps on moving. There are many different, there's a lot of different ways of understanding it. I'm just talking from my own experience, and I understood that that time of clearing takes certain time, and then it's over, then it's cleared. But we have to practice. We always have to practice before the experience and after the experience. And always, practice is the key. But it doesn't have to be something that's totally outside of our daily life. We can understand our daily life or parts of our daily life as practice as well, which is also what I teach. I hope this was something that gave you good information, something that helped. And this week, I am inviting you to use the opportunity of 25% discount on all of my services, individual or groups. Check my website, MoniqueRebelle.com, and let me know if you would like to talk and just discuss your own approach, how you would like to, if you would like to learn, establish a spiritual practice that's completely integrated into your daily life. We can do that. Check out the services that I offer, because they vary. They're short courses that give you more of basic information. There are courses, there are sessions, individual sessions, where we can just work on particular issue. There is a longer course that gives, during which I give all my attention to you throughout the course, throughout the 8 weeks of the course. We stay in communication, and all what you learn, we make sure that you will use, that you will retain and use the knowledge. So it's not like comes in through one ear and goes out through another. It's actually applying the knowledge, and I'll assist you with it. If you would like to try, this week only is 25% off. The code to get the discount is BEYOND. Go to my website, go to services, and see which one you would like to choose. That 25% off is a big deal. It's really, it's quite a bit, because the courses are not that expensive. Let me know if you have any questions about what we talked about, any comments. I'm happy to talk about it anytime. Contact me through Facebook or through my website, MoniqueRebelle.com. And my book is available all the time on Amazon, in Kindle version and in paperback. And I'm actually finishing up recording of the audio. Hopefully, I don't know, maybe just a few weeks and we will have officially my own narration of Transcendence Calling on Amazon and probably other sites as well. I'm not sure yet. So this is it for now. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know. Have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you next time. I will be doing these events once a month, probably, but also in time I'm planning to do classes, to do Zoom classes. So we will alternate. We will do Facebook Live once in a couple of months and a major group Zoom class also every other month. That's the plan. We'll see how it will work out. For now, take care, enjoy your evening, and till the next time.